What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Fan Battle Podcast, brought to you by Fan Battle Sports Network. I am very pleased today because we have a very, very special guest on our show tonight, somebody I've been trying to get on our show for quite some time. You all know him, I'm sure. It's Paul Kuharsky. Go ahead
I'm not
and
that
introduce
hard to
yourself.
get, am I? I just have trouble keeping up with my emails and stuff. I'm perfectly happy to come on. I'm sorry if I've been difficult.
Oh, no. You're absolutely great, man. I'm glad that you're willing to come on for a small timer podcaster like me.
Happy to.
All right. So and as always, I'm sorry, my co-host, Tyler.
Oh man, what's up, y'all? Man, I'm excited to meet PK. Man, I've been keeping up with him for a long time now, so let's get into it.
Definitely. And there is a special thing I want to announce real quick before we get into the game recap and all that. But because PK is here, and because back in the day where I found PK was actually him writing for the Tennessean, because I followed the Tennessean, they used to have this thing online where you could chat in a blog. And there used to be a lady that I used to chat with a lot. She went by the handle Titanhade, and we became fast friends. We were really good friends. We even became connected on Facebook, or not Facebook, excuse me, MySpace. It goes back that far. Yeah, I know, right? I'm old. I'm sorry. But anyway, if you're out there, Titanhade, hit me up, man. Now you know where to find me. This is it, everybody. If you help me, please search. My search begins for Titanhade. If you're out there, hit me up. I miss you.
Looking for a date.
No, she was just awesome talking about football. No, even my wife knows about Titanade because I used to talk about her all the time. She just a really good footballer, man, and she was one of the real Titan fans, not fair weather fan or not, Homer. Someone who actually had some sense and would talk real football instead of just, oh, the Titans are going to win every game, or the Titans are just trash. You get a lot of those in the fandom. But anyway,
My dog's gonna apparently provide some soundtrack if you can hear him back.
Well, hey, that's all right, man. I have cats. I wish I had a dog, to be honest, but it's all right. So anyway, off to the game. We had our first preseason game. It was our first preseason game, so not too much to expect there. But we did get to see a little bit, I feel like. So the first thank you, Matt. That's the head of my network, by the way. Just giving me props.
Oh, man.
So anyway, the first drive of the game, the starting offensive line was out there. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought they looked pretty darn good. Chris Hubbard, I think, got one pressure or something like that, and it looked like he got pushed around a little bit more than the other guys. But for the most part, I was pretty happy with what I saw.
Yeah, they did a good job. Andre Dillard did a good job. Peter Skoronski looked, very, very effective. But collectively, look, that's been the big concern. They obviously go against a good Titans defense on a regular basis through the early part of camp up until that game. The Bears were without their two starting defensive ends, maybe their best linebacker and a starting safety, but you can't control who they're playing. And if you wrote up how you wanted the Titans to look in the opening series, you certainly would have drawn it up like that for Malik Willis, for Tyjae Spears, and for the offensive line. I don't know to what degree you say that alleviates the concerns, but it's certainly a lot better than any alternative. Those five played well. They got their 12 plays in, and Terrell Williams told them to go get a drink of water and call it a day. Call it an afternoon. And so then the guys behind them certainly weren't particularly good, particularly Jalen Duncan and Andrew Rupsich, I thought were the most susceptible of that group. But look, when you don't have a good starting offensive line, that means you probably don't have very good depth on the offensive line. Otherwise, you might have some battles for starting spots, and they don't really have those right now. But so far, so good for that starting group. We'll learn a lot more about them Wednesday and Thursday against Minnesota in these practices. Then, they may or may not play in the game based on how much work they get in the practice field.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see him in the next game too. I thought they did do well in the first series. I saw where Skoronski got his welcome to the NFL hit near the goal line. Saw the meme of it with his arms way up in the air after he got hit. So it's really good though. I like that. I mean, I'm glad he got that in the preseason. Hopefully he gets those. That just knocked the jitters out for him. I thought the offensive line did do really well.
Skoronski's the guy to have, I think, the least concern about.
Yeah,
which is good in that, number 11 pick in the draft should be pretty solid right from the start. It's bad in that, 12 snaps into his preseason career. I think we're all pretty comfortable saying he should be their best lineman, and you wish that wasn't the case. You wish there was a veteran on that line who you'd say, well, Skoronski should aspire to be this guy. He's
right.
Already probably, I think it's fair to say the expectation should be the highest for him of everybody.
Yeah. And I think Titans fans got a little bit, what do we call it? Greedy, or not greedy, but just used to
Spoiled.
having, spoiled. Thank you. We got spoiled with left tackles because we had Michael Roos for so many years. That was so solid for us. And then as soon as he got injured, Taylor Lewan just stepped right in and was great for a good many years as well. And then
Brad Hopkins before that was a good trio of succession.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. There, going even further back. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I'm saying. I think that we got a little spoiled having that. Now that we're in this trying to find our left tackle again, I think that there was too many high expectations for Andre Dillard. I'm included in that list, but I was happy with what I saw yesterday with the limited piece that we saw. Moving on from that, some of the bad things from the game. Well, I mean, first of all, you have to take into consideration that the entire starting defense wasn't out there.
Yeah, Jack Gibbons really the only guy who projects to start, who we saw in a starting role. So, there's 2 long touchdowns off of basically screen passes, not well diagnosed by the Titans, not well handled by the people who are in position to handle them. Fortunately, those people aren't going to be the people that are on the field against New Orleans and further on. And you would think that would be handled better by the guys that are going to be out there. You wouldn't think Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker being the safeties in those situations will let that escape to the degree that it does. Frustrating still, though, to see backups not manage those situations better. And then it's funny to see, people who just look at the box score, see Justin Fields' numbers and presume that those are big plays. Well, I mean, they are big plays. It doesn't matter how the yards come or how far the throws are, but we know there are different ways to score long touchdowns, and certainly there are different ways to give up X plays, which has been a problem for the Titans. But it'll be a much bigger concern if the starting 11 are giving that up instead of the starting 1.
Yeah, agreed. And, some winners and losers. I don't like to say that. Trending up and trending down players from the first game. I have to say Kyle Phillips, just because he caught the ball.
Yeah, he only played 4 snaps of offense, but 16-yard punt return, I believe.
Yeah.
And they're counting on him. He should be a good punt returner. His start of his career in his rookie season was bad. He kind of lost his confidence, and then he got hurt and didn't have a chance to kind of string it back together. He's a guy they're counting on offense and should be counting on for special teams. Special teams unit just hasn't over the last several years and for quite a while been productive enough unit for me. Kicker now is up in the air again with Caleb Shudak. Hit his 41, but it was moving pretty hard. Wouldn't have been good from much further. And then he had a kickoff out of bounds, which is a cardinal sin. And Trey Wolf missed his 46. So not a ton of confidence in those two guys right now. I know they want to get them a lot more kicks, but they may also, be ready if things don't go well in Minnesota to start looking at some of the veterans that are out there. And, guys like Shudak and Wolf generally go a couple places before they hit it. Are the Titans in position to be a stop on their early career path where they go three places before they hit it or wash out? Or, can you get one of them on track and be the place where they take off? There's a lot of mystery kind of with those two guys. Kick return position to me is a lot less important. We're not going to see people waving for the fair catch in the preseason because they want the return experience. But I suspect there's going to be a lot of fair catching with the new rule in the regular season. And I hope the Titans do a lot of fair catching in the regular season because I have faith in their blocking unit to get the returner out past the 25.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a big special teams guy. Max knows this. I'm the Ryan Stonehouse Stan account on Twitter, so I'm huge into special teams. And Kyle Phillips, I thought he did great at punt returner. I was really excited about that because to me, if you get us 10 yards on a punt return, that's one less first down we have to get on the drive. So average us 10 yards and catch the ball. Like we said last week, just catch it and don't fumble it, and I'll be happy with it. So hopefully Kyle can stay healthy just to do that. Maybe he can get some catches on offense, but I think he's more valuable as a punt returner as well.
They need to get to a place where the standards are higher. Craig Aukerman, the coach, I think the first time he talked to us, maybe this off season or maybe this season, said, 40 to 49-yard field goals and catch the punt. Well, yeah. I'm like you. I think you should expect to catch the punt and get, close to first downs worth of yardage. And you got to be kicking field goals over 50 yards. I mean, you look around the league, I think in Oakland, Carlson maybe had 16 attempts over 50 yards, something like that. Don't hold me to the number. The Titans had 2. So, and this is a team that's going to win and lose a lot of games by field goal margin, likely. It's not going to be, I expect them to score more than last year, but they're not going to be one of the league's high-flying offenses. And being able to attempt field goals from 53, 54 yards is becoming commonplace in the league. And they can't be punting in those situations or going for it on 4th and 4, 4th and 5 if they don't feel they've got the ability to convert those situations.
Yeah, I agree. And as much as I love Stonehouse, his short range punting game has not been very great so far in his career. He can boom it from down the field, but when we get into those situations like that, I mean, his ability to put the ball inside the 10 is not Brett Kern. So let's get a kicker who can kick those field goals.
Few are, but
yeah, I was going to say he was a legend because of that. All right, some other key people that did some positive things was offensive lineman Justin Murray, who was just added to the team. Jordan Ruse did really well, I thought. Reggie Roberson and Trayshawn Harrison really helped their case to try to make the squad. And Tim Kelly is the biggest shout out I got to give out to the game. I know it was preseason, and I know you don't call preseason games the same way you do regular season games. However, we had 32 plays on first down. 20 of them were passes. 12 of them were runs.
Like that ratio for sure. Very non-Todd Downing-ish, but also no Derrick Henry in the game. So,
exactly.
Things are going to change. And like you said, he's not going to expose much of what's going on. And they've got a lot to sort through with those receivers. It'll be interesting to see how they deploy people in this next game because Vrabel said there will be 2s who fall to 3s and 3s who become 2s. I fully expected one of those low-ranking receivers. Not that this is a bad thing, but somebody usually has a big game, and then Nashville gets all too excited about a low-ranking receiver and anoints him the next Byron Ely or Trey McBride, who doesn't turn into anything, but turns into a preseason superstar. Nick Westbrook-Akina's having a tough camp. He had another drop today. But I don't think he's in any trouble, in part because there's nobody from behind applying any pressure to him. And I think he and Chris Moore are a lot alike. Chris Moore's a better version of Nick Westbrook-Akine, but they're still an injury away from needing Nick Westbrook-Akine, even if he is, asked too much. I think he's good as a 4 or 5. I think his hands will come back, but they're injury away from him being 3 and the third outside receiver. And I think it's a little bit risky to give up on that if you're counting on a Reggie Roberson or a Trayshawn Harrison or Gavin Holmes or any of these guys who are all unproven. I think at some point you need to take a leap of faith with one of those guys, but I think the leap of faith is get them on the practice squad and get them in line to be the next guy. It's time to be done with the Mason Kinsey. If Mason Kinsey couldn't play for this team last year, when Kyle Phillips, the guy whose image he is in, was out and you couldn't play him, I don't know what Mason Kinsey is going to do for you now.
He's definitely got a cult following in the Titans fan base. Mason Kinsey does, but I don't see it either.
Right.
I agree.
I
agree completely. But I would rather see like guys like Kearis Jackson, who I thought did a really good job. He was one of the guys I had an eye on in that game. I thought he did a really good job showing up. He's not a superstar or anything, but some guy who can be a practice squad guy who might add depth when those injuries end up happening inevitably down the road.
I could see him keeping, I'm not a McMath guy. I think McMath would still be in line to be 6th and could make the team as 6th based on his special teams. He played the most special team snaps for the team, 13, and still was at the top of the line for Gunners. So we'll have to see what happens there in terms of who's gunning against Minnesota, and that could forecast some things. But if it's not McMath, I would suspect right now that they stay at 5. And then like you're indicating, put a couple of those guys on the practice squad, have them ready to go when the time comes. Roberson's speed has started to show up a little bit. Roberson, he changed it back to now. So I was trained on Roberson, and it is Roberson. So I have to train myself back now. His speed has started to show up. I think his ACL, or the mental part of his ACL, which was all the way back in 2020, stuck with him. I like him. And I think Kearis has a chance maybe, and Harrison has a chance. I think out of those 3, you could see 2 practice squatters, or maybe a guy make the roster.
I was wondering last week, what is it with Racey McMath? He has the build and he has the speed of an NFL receiver. He seems like he's going to be a monster, but he can never quite put it together. Is it his run blocking, or what is it about him that he just can't put it all together?
And I think he's been okay this camp, and he was okay in this game. He just, he never was a full-time receiver in college behind all the studs they have at LSU. He was a special teamer there. He's primarily a special teamer here. Well, that's nice, but I need my last wide receiver to also be able to play wide receiver, especially given the injury history of some of these guys and the injury potential of this team. And the guy's got 4 catches in more chances than that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're still running the patient plan with him, but my clock ticks faster than the Titans clock ticks a lot of times. Yeah, my dog's clock is ticking pretty fast right now. I'm trying for some attention now that everybody else in the house left.
What about I have a love affair with Colton Dowell. I'm sorry. I don't know what.
Yeah, I didn't mention Colton Dowell, and I should have mentioned him with those other guys. I think they like Colton Dowell a lot. I think Colton Dowell has a lot of promise. I think Colton Dowell is the perfect practice squad type of guy. I think you're in a little bit of danger letting him go. But look, he's not going to get claimed and go step on the field somewhere else for somebody right away either. So he'd be a 6th somewhere else who would be deactivated. How much roster room do you have on your team to pick up that guy who hasn't been in your camp all preseason the way he has been here? I think Titans fans tend to overvalue their own guys in terms of the attractiveness to another team come September 30th, which will be claiming day. And I think he's most likely to end up on the practice squad, though they may fear losing him, in which case he'd have to be on the roster, obviously. Finley!
All right, so to some of the negatives that we saw in the game, or negative play.
Take me down for 1 second there. Keep talking. I'll hear you. Just take my video off.
All right, man. So basically, we're going to talk about Chris Moore. And I was really excited to see him play. He was probably one of my, top 10 players I wanted to see play because everybody was really excited about him in camp. But then when he came onto the screen, both times he caught the ball, it was dislodged from him. And that really worried me.
You're talking about Moore?
Yeah.
I think he's a better player than I imagined he would be by a good bit. And he's got a ton of respect in the room right away, which is valuable. He's more relatable than DeAndre Hopkins, who's certainly a big influence in the receiver room. But Chris Moore is as well. I didn't think the second ball was – he should have caught it. But the first one, to me, I thought would have been a better challenge for Chicago, but I do think he had it. It's just 2 passes. I don't think it's that big a deal. A small sample size for a veteran guy.
All right.
That worked out well. I opened the door to get the dog in here, and he didn't come in here. Now we hear him barking more loudly. So I'm doing what I can, but it's really failing miserably. Finley, come here.
That's all right. We're just this podcast is featuring PK and his dog. We love it. It's okay.
Yeah. PK's dog's welcome on the cast too, man. The other thing that really stood out to me in the game that was negative was Nicholas Petit-Ferrer.
Yes.
He played with like the 2s and the 3s and just was getting, I think he had 4 pressures and a sack, I think.
Yeah, I don't really get it either. His practice reps have been spotty, obviously, because they're preparing for life without him. And so I'm sure he's rusty, but your starting guy, even though he's about to not start 6 games, should, I think, by default, fare well against 2s and 3s. And he obviously didn't. I would presume they'd chalk it up to him not having had sufficient work. I wouldn't read anything into it for game 7, but I guess we're going to find out a lot more about him when he comes back, and maybe some more this week in Minnesota.
See, I kind of thought that it might be something like, man, I'm playing against 2s and 3s and I'm a starter. This is preseason week 1. I really don't care.
Well, so that would be dumb of him, given the way the organization works, and he needs to stay in good graces, knowing that he's disappearing for 6 weeks. So didn't have a chance to see him today, Monday, and they're off Tuesday. We'll see him again on Wednesday, and he won't be a priority because he's not going to be a key matchup there. So probably won't have a chance to talk to him until after the Minnesota game.
Yeah. I hope he remembers who his head coach is if he's doing that, Tyler. Because Vrabel don't take kindly to stuff like that. The other big thing was Josh Wiley. Everybody's talking about Josh Wiley and how bad he did, and he's a rookie. It's his first time he's ever been on an NFL field with another team. In live action. So I didn't really freak out at the fact that he didn't do great. But there's one play in particular that everybody's talking about on Twitter anyway. I don't know. But it's the play where hang on, I've got a clip of it. It's the play where basically Malik Willis throws it to him and he bounces it off of his hands right here. And then Malik Willis, clean pocket, nobody around him, threw it way too high. And then Wiley fails to bring it in. It clearly goes through his hands.
It's too high and it's too hot, though it's not quite as high as I thought there, seeing it on replay. He clearly should have caught it, and it clearly should have been a better throw. So blame to go around on both sides.
Thank you.
But, you It wasn't a good day for Wiley. And yeah, draft pick in his first game. Peter Skoronski, draft pick in his first game, higher. Draft pick, obviously. Spears, draft pick in his first game, higher, surely, but he played well. So, I'm sure Wiley is anxious to get back out on the field and do better, and he's capable of doing better. But I also, excuse me, is a 5th-round pick, right? Mm-hmm. 5th-round picks in Nashville don't generally get on the field a lot early and aren't asked to do a great deal. They slow play rookies if they can. Now, maybe it'll change a little bit on offense with Tim Kelly, but last year they were very slow to go with any volume to Burks and to Chig Okonkwo. And we were asking over and over, why not more? Why not more? And they just kept saying it's coming. And it wasn't coming. It didn't really come in a lot of ways. I mean, even when they finally got going with Chig, I think he was averaging just a little below or just a little above 3 targets a game, which was not what he deserved based on the production he was giving them out of those targets a game. So, I'm not expecting them to go to Wiley a lot when he is on the field. And I really think the 4 top receivers on this team need to be clear-cut. Hopkins, Burks, Phillips, Chig, maybe more in the mix there. But if somebody besides those 5 is in there, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I thought he did well with getting open, which is a good sign, I guess. But once he got open and got the ball, I mentioned to Max before the podcast that when you look at the video that they had on the Titans Twitter of the wide receivers and tight ends coming onto the field, he had a really nervous look to him. And I don't know if that was the case in person. I'm not sure. But the way it looked in the video was he was really stiff and just looked like he was almost scared in his first action in the NFL. So I think the more he gets out there, the more comfortable he's going to get, and he'll get better with time. He was getting open, so that's a plus.
Yeah, well, if he did have that in him, hopefully there'll be a lot less of it in him for game 2.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other big play that everybody's talking about is the Jalen Duncan sack, I guess, Will Levis sack. Everybody, they're arguing over whose fault it is, whether it's Will Levis should have stepped up in the pocket or Jalen Duncan should have blocked him better, carrying him around the side.
Well, Will Levis probably should have stepped up in the pocket, but Jalen Duncan didn't have a good game and didn't look like a guy who's particularly well equipped right now to handle what he needed to handle. I thought Levis stepped up in the pocket a couple times, was a little bit surprised that somebody was still alive behind him, but maybe didn't have a good sense that somebody was about to hit him. But when somebody did hit him, did a really nice job of not being surprised by it in a way that jarred the ball loose, which is a good sign for a guy in his first game. So I thought he had some savvy there, and that was significant. We've seen plenty of guys in their first game with a rusher like that sneaking up on him from behind, who he might have thought was dead on the play, finding a way to pop the ball free. And he had 2 occasions there where that could have easily happened to him, and he didn't let it happen. So I was impressed to a degree by that.
I thought Jalen Duncan did decent for his first game, especially being a 6th-round pick. He showed some flashes, so I'm hoping those flashes continue to develop into a steady game because he's built like a tank. The guy has the build for the NFL, but it's just about the little things. Can he put it all together and get better? So I'm excited to see what he can do as well as a backup, of course. I hope he doesn't have to start this year.
Well, I certainly think he fits into project category in terms of he's going to take some time, and they really need to not have to call on somebody like him this year. Ideally, Hubbard can play serviceable right tackle and then be a serviceable backup when Petit Frere is back, and Petit Frere can build on what he did last year, not start from where we saw him the other night.
Yeah, I hope we're not starting from where we saw him the other night. I forgot to mention in my positives, Caleb Murphy. I was excited. That was one of the players I was excited to watch. I believe he got about 12 to 15 snaps, I think. I don't know. I'm not really sure on the snap count, but yeah, I think that's about right. And he had 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. So
yeah, he'd only he's flashed periodically, but he's not done a ton in camp, and so that production. Caleb Murphy actually played 37 defensive snaps, 66%, and 3 special team snaps. That's the third most snaps on defense behind only Johnson and Carter. So he was out there actually a great deal. And that's good for him. And, I think for a guy like that to look the best he's looked in the game, I think that's the most notice or the most, most of us have noticed him. That's a good sign.
Yeah, for sure, man. I was just, like I said, it was one of the guys that I was happy to see succeed because I wanted to see him succeed. A lot of people talked, trash the fact that he was a D2 or whatever. And I was like, look, man, 40 sacks is 40 sacks. I don't care where you come from. That's still impressive. And you at least got to give the guy a shot and see what he can do.
I think he'll be a practice squad type guy in my estimation.
Yeah, I think he's somebody that can develop, though. He has that instinct for football. So I don't really expect much from a Division II guy coming into the NFL for his first time. It's almost like Josh Wiley playing at Cincinnati and then coming to play NFL guys. It's a big leap, and Division II is way bigger than playing at Cincinnati. So I don't expect too much his first year, but like you said, a practice squad guy who can develop, and that's what we need in Tennessee, people who we can develop, project guys.
And you went from Wiley to Murphy, and then you can go all the way to Anthony Kendall, who got a compliment from Vrabel for what he did, particularly on special teams. And he played at Baldwin Wallace, which is Division III. So, he's really got the furthest to go. And I think he might, earn himself a practice squad possibility. But he's a guy that really needs time. Heck, Colton Dowell also – we were talking about earlier. I think he's going to need a year probably, and that's from UT Martin.
Is it just me, or does Colton Dowell look like a mock-up of NWI? I said it when he got drafted. I guess I don't know if it's just their build or what, but man, they look so similar to me. They move similar and play similar to me.
I don't see it as much. I don't know. I don't have their numbers in front of me. I think. And also I'd have to look back at NWI. I think NWI is a little bit thicker and Dowell maybe a little bit lankier. But I'm not the best with like doing a slideshow of body types in my head. A lot of you guys are a lot better at that than I am, especially guys that watch a lot of college. Yeah. And I admittedly do not.
Colton Dowell is a lot faster than NWI. Or at least his 40 time was. I don't know if that translates on the field or not, but his 40 time was like 4.42 or something like that.
Well, admittedly, I never watched either one of those guys in college. I'm strictly going off of watching the draft and what I see from their highlights there.
You don't watch a lot of Indiana?
Never watched a lot of Indiana or UT Martin. No, not too big on that. I would rather watch North Alabama, really UNA FCS football than Indiana.
I am a crazy Titans fan. As soon as the people get drafted, if I don't know who they are or where they came from, I start researching immediately. That's pretty much how I spent my draft night. After the draft was over, was researching who we just got, like Tajay Spears. I was like, oh, I don't know that guy. I had to look him up and I had to look at his tape because I didn't know from the reactions and from the people talking. I was like, oh God. But then I watched the tape and I read that, he lost his ACL in like 2020 or 2021 or something like that. Played the whole 2022 season without it, just like he is now with no injury, whatever, and had a great season, and most of his tape is from that season. So I'm happy with that. That's the kind of thing, I think most people don't do that they should. If you don't know who a guy is, just Google it. Watch a little bit of tape.
I'm glad you brought up Tajay Sharp Spears because
I do that all the time.
One guy that's really trending down for me, and I've been kind of down on him through camp, is Hassan Haskins. He hasn't shown me anything, and today we signed Jaquez Patrick. So I was interested to get PK's take on this. What do you think that means for Haskins? Is that because Ward went down with an injury, or because we're planning on moving on from Haskins?
Well, I don't think it's because they're planning on moving on from Haskins, but Haskins wasn't at practice on Monday either. So both Ward and Haskins were gone. So Haskins might have gotten dinged as well. We don't know. We won't know. And they're not obligated to tell us anything. I know that they were anticipating more news on Ward on Sunday. They didn't have a great feel for it Saturday as they were heading out of Chicago. So Ward would be a bigger loss if he's going to miss any kind of time than Haskins. Haskins obviously has this felony case hanging over his head. He's got a court date on the 30th, I believe, which is the day after cuts on the 29th. I'm not much of a Haskins. I think Haskins is a nice special teams player, and I'm not talking about his return game. He can run down the field and make a tackle, and there's some value in that, and having your third or fourth running back be able to do that. Ward played a lot of special teams on Saturday in Chicago, so they're giving him a chance to do that. So we got to see how those two shake out, and if this what is he, XFL guy or so if this XFL guy can do anything. But look, if there's a running back out on the street during 90-man rosters, you're really hitting a scouting home run if he's somebody that's got a chance to do anything for you. So it's much more likely he's a camp body. And it's a good time to be Julius Chestnut right now. You're going to get a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a good time to be
Julius Chestnut. I do I think he provides a good spark. If his vision can get a little bit better and he can hit the holes that open up, he could be a monster. That's really, I think, his biggest setback right now with Chestnut is his vision.
I think monster's a little big.
Agreed. And that's all I'll say about that. Trey Avery, I wanted to bring that up before we're done with the game. But Trey Avery, Cortland did bring up a good point. We didn't even mention Galvin Holmes. He did flash a couple times, but I believe he was the receiver that didn't cross over when he was supposed to, or was on the wrong page with Will Levis, and
he was definitely the target on the second to last play.
Mm-hmm.
Levis overthrew a bit. And that was the play Levis was beating himself up for, the second to last play, where if he had hit him in stride, he probably turns it up and gets in. If he doesn't get in, he's inside the 10, maybe inside the 5, and they're set up right there on the porch.
Yeah, all right. That makes a little more sense. But Trey Avery, I wanted to talk about him for a minute because he had a nice interception. But for me, it was a little too late. Like I mentioned before, the first two plays were bad. If you go back and watch the tape on the first play, Trey Avery got a little over aggressive and just got blocked out of the play.
He run into an offensive lineman there, right? He ran up to an offensive lineman and took him on, when if he just kind of came up and came to balance and assessed what was going on, he would have had a play on him, if not to make a tackle, to slow him down and let other people come. I don't know why you'd run to engage the offensive lineman. It seemed over aggressive and not well played. Yeah, he didn't assess that very well. But I do think Trey Avery's got a good chance to make this team as a depth cornerback. And then, look, the Titans have proven if their front four rushing the passer well, they can plug and play a variety of guys behind them and have success if they need to. And, are we going to count on all those guys staying healthy? I don't know about Murphy Bunting health-wise. McCreary played a full season last year, but we know Fulton's had problems staying healthy. We know Elijah Molden is maybe the dime now, has had problems staying healthy last year. And we know Amani Hooker's had problems staying healthy with a variety of injuries, not one thing. So you want to be as deep as you can in that secondary. And I think Trey Avery is a guy who can be a serviceable player if you can play numbers in the secondary.
Yeah, I agree. And since you were bringing that up, I think Armani, I think is how you say his name, Armani Marsh. I think he's one that we might want to keep an eye on as far as defensive back depth goes.
And that Eric Garrard made some really nice tackles, went low, very, very smartly, kind of textbook. He fell out of practice right at the end on Monday, and so we'll have to keep an eye on what's going on with him. He might have had the breath knocked out of him. It looked like, could have been a groin, could have got hit in the privates, but he wasn't able to finish right at the end. Something happened. He was crouched down for a while, but he wasn't getting a lot of attention from the trainers either. So maybe it was minor, but he's definitely a guy who his stock went up based on his performance.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't even really know that much about him. You know what I mean? Before the game,
he did some good things in OTAs. He got noticed. He's had a pretty quiet camp until this. But when Vrabel was talking about guys moving up and down the depth chart, I think he was definitely sparked. That was sparked by a question about Eric.
I was glad to see Chris Jackson gone. I'm happy about that. I'm tired of that.
Another guy that I think had done some serviceable things. He's probably maxed out, but he's had some games where again, when they were, undermanned in the secondary, I think had done some serviceable things, but they probably have some better options now.
I did see where he was him and Christian Fulton were the last two guys from that draft class, and now it's Christian Fulton is the only guy left from a draft class of 3 years ago. So
not a good one.
No.
Yeah. So exactly how you feel about Chris Jackson is how I feel about Racey McMath. I feel like, man, it's just time to move on. But I understand he has more than just receiver ability. So this is the last segment of our show. I'll try to move on from talking about the game. I mean, obviously we can ask questions about the game, but this is where it's the fans' turn to ask us questions, basically, in our chat. So we've got a few here. Let's see here. It's not really a question. It's more of a statement, but says we need to be better at O-line and corner. We're bad at both positions. Not bad at corner as we are at line, though.
You're looking for depth. Look, this team's depth is one of the biggest issues there is. There are very few positions where it's deep. Tight end would be the first place I would turn. If Chig Okonkwo goes down, this team's really in big trouble at tight end. But offensive line is not deep. Corner, as I said, I think is a place where they could survive an injury or two based on how they've plugged and played in the past. They have a new coach there too, and Chris Harris, who I think can coach up some technique in guys. And I think it's kind of how the defense works. That the Bucs, when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, were really based on a veteran defensive front that could get to the passer and some no-name-ish cornerbacks, including Sean Murphy-Bunting, who did a good job there. But they were young, right? They were young and inexperienced cornerbacks who made it work.
Yeah, and see, I think Cortland's a little jealous of your seat. I'm not sure what that means, but he says, PK, can I use your seat in the media room next time?
People love that. Like, can they sit in on whatever radio I'm doing or the pod or have my media pass? And the answer is always no. Always no. None of that is available. Sorry.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure Cortland has his own media pass, but
he's got a media pass. Oh, he just wants my seat. Well, he wants to move down towards the 50-yard line. Yeah, that's a bonus that comes from having sat in or around that seat since 1996 in the Astrodome.
That's right. Yeah, that is one thing I wanted to talk to you about. And yeah, we're getting kind of close to our hour mark anyway. My network likes to keep it under an hour, and I understand that for viewing purposes and such. Anyway, and let's talk about you for a minute, man. You are a legend as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you are, man. You're a Titans legend as far as I'm concerned. We used to do a segment on legends, and I was actually going to do one of my segments on you because as far as I'm concerned, you're a legend. You came with the team as soon as the team started. I mean, not as soon as the team moved to Tennessee, but as in '96. I mean, it was pretty close.
Before I covered the last year in Houston for the Tennesseans.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, all right. Darn. I guess I'm wrong. Well, anyway, I found you like the moment you were my go-to source for all Titans information. And I like the way that you kind of questioned everything. You know, some people like to say that you're a grumpy guy or that you don't like the Titans or whatever, but I just love the fact that you have the intelligence in the sense to ask good questions that, you know, hey, maybe the coach doesn't want to answer it or whatever, but it's a good question to ask.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's all I'm trying to do really is, cover it without any fear. And I know there are questions that people want to hear asked or want to see them respond to or not respond to, which is the case plenty of times. But if it's something that seems like there's no reasonable explanation for, which happens sometimes, I try to see if there is in fact a reasonable explanation for it. And then, oftentimes you guys out there do the judging on it, or I'll write a column about it. And, it's taken me a long way. I'm 54 now. I've been at this since 95. I covered the Oakland Raiders for a year before I got on the Titans beat. And so not everybody approaches it the same way, but that's the way I've covered it. And it's worked for me for a long time. And, a lot of people tend to think it turns into, these terrible relationships out there. And I've had a good relationship with every coach of the Titans. Most of them tend to like, a little bit of that friction, at least at times, and it keeps things lively, if you will.
Exactly. I mean, if you've got every single reporter just kissing the rear end of the coach, it's or just saying, the same questions that everybody, is kind of regurgitating, then it's not entertaining. I like the devil's advocates out there that want to, kind of, I don't know. No, I don't want to say push the envelope, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you've got good taste. But I will note that I almost made a Titans Legend segment. I did not make a Titans Legend segment. So I've got some work to do, clearly.
All right. Well, if you ever want to know any, I'll be happy to help you with that. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my boy right there. That's the one that helped me. He helped me more than pretty much anybody in the industry to try to help me get this started and get going. Got to give a huge shout out to my man Cortland Griffin. Been on the show a couple times, and yeah, he's a good dude. And yeah, see, he's just showing some love to everybody. Anyway, all right, so I guess we're about to wrap up. We're at the 50-minute mark. I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited that you came on my show, PK. I love you, man. I've been a subscriber now for a little while, not very long, but a little while. Plan on keeping that subscription, by the way.
Well, I invite everybody else to join as well. I've got a training camp sale going on right now at paulkuharsky.com. Really not very expensive. If you come over, check out the membership tab. And if you don't like it, I'll let you out of it. I guarantee you. So come check it out.
Yeah, man. Couple Cokes a month is all it costs to get the content. and it's some perfect content, man. I mean, you don't get content like this from everybody else.
Appreciate it.
And that's the point. That really is the point. And anyway, tell them where else they can find you at, PK, Twitter. And
I'm at Paul Kuharsky NFL on Twitter, Kuharsky. You can find me at on Facebook also, and Instagram. You just look me up. I'm on both there. P Kuharsky on Instagram. And I don't know when are you putting this up, guys?
Oh, it's live.
Oh, it's live right now. Sorry, I didn't realize that. I'll be the last day of my fill-in for Robbie Stanley on Robbie and Rex Road tomorrow morning, 6 to 9 on 102.5 The Game.
Sad that's coming to an end. All right, Tyler, go ahead and tell them where they can find you at, brother.
You see it right here at Titan_always22, the Ryan Stonehouse Stan account, the original one and only, formerly the Brett Kern Stan account. Show love to all the specialists. PK, I appreciate you coming on here so much, man. It was really nice to meet you. I hope you keep stirring the pot for Titans Nation, because we need somebody to keep the drama up for us, and you do a really good job of that. So I appreciate you doing that.
Well, that's not what I'm going for, but I appreciate it. And you got 22 in there. I would have thought you were a Derrick Henry stan.
Well, I am a Derrick Henry stan, but that's from my college team too. He's my favorite player in the NFL. But I got to show love to the specialist. I was a punter in high school, so
I got you. Well, I appreciate you guys having me very much. I enjoyed it.
No problem. And as always, you can find me, Maximus Titan Fan, everywhere. You can also find the Titans Fan Battle Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Did I miss any? I don't think so. If I did, like, subscribe, share. Sharing is caring. Again, thank you, PK, for coming on the show. We appreciate having you. Everybody, have a good night.
Good night.